It's the Sports Peninsula podcast. Coming up, the Detroit Lions improved their record to 7-1, which is their best start since the 1956 season, as they defeated the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau Field 24-14 last weekend. In a rain-soaked affair, the Lions were able to move the ball consistently and were equally adept at preventing the Pack from getting any momentum after the Lions took a 17-3 lead into the half. We'll take a look back at last week's triumph and preview the upcoming Sunday Night Football tilt against the talented Houston Texans, led by C.J. Stroud on November 10th. Now here is your Sports Peninsula team. Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Peninsula podcast. My name is Dave Jasinski Drew. We're talking Lions football, and we're having our discussion today fresh from Lambeau Field with the youth for Brad Harrison. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Drew. I am doing just outstanding. That's much better to win a football game sitting out in the rain than losing one.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we're spoiled here in Detroit. We've had a dome since 1975. But you can catch some college and football games outside, but you want to see the Lions, you're going indoors, baby. But yeah, how was it out there, brother? Because it looked like a downpour.
Oh man, it was outstanding. It was. I mean, everything you saw on TV is exactly what it was. I mean, everything I had was soaked through. It was just. But it was just fantastic. I mean, the crowd was just, you're just on top of each other, so it doesn't really matter at some point. You're not worrying about getting wet, and it really wasn't that cold. Like, I think it was in the 50s, right? So, I mean, it wasn't cold and wet, but it sure was wet. And it seemed to affect one team and not another.
How ironic.
I am very, very, very pleased for what Dan Campbell has developed indoors with the Detroit Lions.
Yeah. I know all the talk that they can't hang outside or whatever. I mean, they do practice outside.
Right. I thought it was brilliant hearing about how they got the football soaked during the week, and practice that way. Maybe every NFL team does that. First time I'd heard that. And obviously what they did leading up to Sunday was important. And one of my favorite answers to a question Dan Campbell was asked, somebody asked him about what's the most important thing going into Lambeau. Maybe it was asked a little different than that, but his answer was shoes. That's all he said.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, because he was talking about those
shoes.
Cleats, man. Get them cleats right. Get it right. Well, yeah, I think they did too. And it seemed like, I mean, they kept it more, I wouldn't say simplistic, but they certainly kept it more of a basic game plan. But then that's what you have to do in the elements. But you're right, it affected Green Bay a lot more than it affected Detroit. You can talk about injuries all we want, but at the same time, like I don't want to hear it. The Lions have been decimated, quite frankly, but They're so deep and so talented that they've been able to overcome them. And they're still 7-1, like we said in the intro. I mean, Brad, we've never seen this in our lifetime. 1956, last time this happened. 7-1. I did not think they'd be. I mean, I didn't think they'd be 7-1. I figured 5-2, maybe 6. I'm sorry, maybe 6-2, maybe 5-3, but in good shape.
It's a tough stretch. This is a tough stretch.
Yes, it is.
All these road games. Another road game coming up. So yeah, they are beyond my expectations for the start of the season, for sure. Shame on me for not having that belief in what's being built in Allen Park. But I just looked at that schedule and went, whoa, these are a lot of road games.
I don't think it's so much a lack of faith, brother. I think it's more about, just being realistic. I mean, they we didn't think they'd lose the Tampa game, but they did. I mean, if at the beginning of the season, I wasn't thinking they'd beat the Dallas Cowboys necessarily in Dallas, but I was hoping they would. We picked them to win. They certainly did. This was a game last weekend. I mean, you kind of figure, hey, I'd love to see them win. Certainly know they can. And I believe I read this, Brad, and I don't know if you saw it as well, but there's only been one quarterback in Detroit Lions history that's won 3 straight games in Lambeau Field, and its name's Jared Goff.
He's breaking a lot. He's gonna be the answer to a lot of questions. A
Yeah.
lot of great stats.
So is it safe to say, fan base, hashtag One Pride Nation, that they shouldn't get rid of Jared Goff now, right? We don't need to replace him right now. Okay.
Yeah, we're just fine, everybody.
Okay, I'm glad. Wow. We got
and I mean, to be in that stadium, to hear the Jared Goff chants ringing out.
Yes.
And I mean, it wasn't, I mean, I'm sure, you know, to our viewers who were there and the ones that watched on television, you could hear it, you know, come through the speaker. But to walk the concourse and hear the Jared Goff chants just echoing throughout Lambeau Field was a memory I hope to never forget. It was just, I'm so thrilled for the guy, And the people outside of One Pride Nation, you think some folks on our team don't get it. Outside of this fan base, they don't have any clue what this man is doing and is capable of. So let's just keep surprising them. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here.
Yeah, I mean, Jared Goff, he's not going to intimidate you. He doesn't scare you when he walks in your building. But then when he's absolutely, he's so efficient. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, it's truly incredible to have more touchdowns in a 5-game stretch than incompletions.
People don't believe it. I was at some tailgate parties before, and I'm talking about. They're like, "What?" Like, yeah, I didn't make that up. You didn't hear that wrong.
No,
this is what's happening. Really? Yeah. Okay. We'll see you in a little bit.
30 straight completions on 30 straight targets to Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, it's not realistic to keep expecting that level of efficiency. It is not.
Yeah, that's the one. You know, I'm not worried. And here's the thing, right? Like, we all want the Super Bowl. In this team, I'm going to enjoy the moment. I'm going to enjoy these moments. I'm going to enjoy what happened last week, what happened in Minnesota, what's going to happen in Houston. Like, we can't get ahead of it, right? And I think what we saw is football, right? Run the ball, efficient passing. You know, the defense will get into it, but you know, just play football. That's what these guys are doing. They're lining up, and the talent is incredible. As great as Goff is, that offensive line is the reason, man. Not the reason. I don't know. Like, it's all working together.
You're right. The offensive line is the linchpin, holds it all together because everything flows from that group. But yeah, everyone's doing their part too, and it's just it's on top of that, you got Montgomery and Gibbs. I mean, they're coming at you. It's like they go every other quarter. It's really the pattern. Montgomery closes it out. He's in the second and fourth. Jameer's in the first and the third. You know, sometimes they'll overlap. If someone's got a hot hand, they're going to roll with them. But you talk about fresh legs. Yeah. By the fourth quarter, you've got an offensive line that is pretty much worn down the defensive line at this point. And now you've got a David Montgomery or a Jahmyr Gibbs coming in with only 1 quarter's worth of reps on their legs. Not a good situation for the opposition at all. We had the best back ever in Barry Sanders. He had to play most of the game. Coach Fonts pulled him at the goal line a lot there and took some touchdowns from him. I get that. Whatever. But
Eric Lynch, Derek Moore, give him those touchdowns.
Yeah, those guys were great in '93. I'll tell you that. The only year Barry got hurt, he still had 1,000 yards. You know, but it is incredible. The line, everything flows through that line. I mean, Goff, 90% of the time has the time he needs to work, and he's able to. He's like you say, surgical out there, man. He's just carving up the defense. I mean, this isn't being a fan slappy. I mean, I'm sorry if you've thrown fewer incomplete passes in 5 games than your team scored touchdowns, you are doing some work. And you're right. It's not just him; it's the whole offense, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's all working together, and you spread. You spread the love around. Everybody, you're all doing it. It's not just Jared, but man, Jared, thankful Brad Holmes had the thought to bring him here and make that happen. And that trade is going down as one of the maybe one of the greatest trades in all of sport.
I you know what? When the Lions get their ring, and I am saying when, not if, when, yeah, how do you argue it? To trade a quarterback like Matt Stafford, and they go get their ring that year, and then they get Jared Goff and all that draft capital, 2 first rounders and a third, and then you parlay it into this team now, and then you go out and get your own. Mission accomplished. I mean, that's a mutual handshake between 2 organizations right there. Thank you very much. But the beauty of it now is, now the Rams, they're not a bad team at all. We know they're a good team, but they've been banged up, and they don't have that depth. And why is that? Because they traded a lot of draft capital away to get that one shot. And I know there's fans that want that one shot. This team's not a 1-year window, man. This team has honestly, at least a 4-year window. And that's assuming they have to start kind of retooling or almost rebuilding after 4 years. If they keep on this path, Brad, I don't see that happening, man. Talk about that.
No, I mean, the depth, the way the salary cap has been organized by Holmes and company, this is not one and done. You're exactly right. I mean, we just saw it this week with the trade deadline we just got through. I mean, Zadarius Smith isn't the tier 1 DN. Well, guess what? We weren't going to give up these picks to get tier 1. Brad Holmes did a remarkable job of getting those late round picks up. And I'll tell you, in April, he's going to get those picks back. Mm-hmm. There's going to be one way or the other. He thinks whatever the word is, he values those picks so much. Like, we're going to be trading back. We're going to be getting more picks. I mean, we're still going to come out with a great draft class, even given up what we gave up to get Zadarius in the building. So, what Brad Holmes does in April is why we're having so much joy in November.
Now, here's the beauty of this, because Coach Gio and I talked about this, I mean, last or 2 weeks ago, because that's when the hype kind of started up. And, at that point, we were already saying, no, they can't afford Crosby. Coach Dan Campbell basically flat out said it 3 weeks ago at the press conference, one of his press conferences. He's like, well, what are we going to do? I mean, if you go replace Hutch, but you get a guy that's making big money, what are you going to do? Trade Hutch? Because he's got to get paid. Mm-hmm. And I've been saying all along, kiss Branch and Gibbs goodbye if you're going to break the bank on another defensive lineman. Now, I get it, but I would much rather have a Zadarius Smith who's still got tread on the tires. He's 32. He ain't 85, man. He's 32 years old. I mean, I know we've seen the best of him, but that doesn't mean he's regressing. The guy's having a pretty good year. And this is what makes Holmes even better, because you're right about that draft capital. But when you look, we broke down the numbers. Smith is owed $9.9 million and change next year if he's on the team. Now, he's got a dead cap hit of $14 million. Now, you would assume the Lions would take that on by making the trade, but that's not the case. And I'm like, okay. So they literally could rent Zadarius Smith if they want to and let him walk next year, and there's no implications. You lost a 5th and a 6th, but you get a 7th back, and everyone said, well, who cares about a 5th and a 6th? Well, you ought to care about a 5th and a 6th, folks, because the way trading draft capital to get a stud never got the Lions anything. Accumulating picks. Was Max Crosby, was he a first-round pick? No, he was a 4th-round pick. Well, St. Brown, he had to be a top 10 pick, right? Nope. Go ask him where he was drafted. He'll name every receiver in order who was drafted ahead of him once he was taken in the 4th round on day 3. So these day 3 picks are not throwaway picks. I think for those of you old enough now, I got to say that when Matt Millen was the general manager, and Bob Quinn for that matter, the 2nd round pick was a fun pick.
Black hole.
Yeah, let's have some fun because we think we're the smartest guy in the room. That's not what you do. Brad Holmes does not do that. I mean, I'm very happy. Would I love Max Crosby? Well, yeah, of course I would have, but not at the expense of eventually a Branch and a Gibbs and maybe a Campbell or maybe a Laporta. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Let's rethink that, folks. So I think Holmes did a fantastic job getting Smith. I'm sure we'll see him Sunday. That'll be great. But let's kind of talk about the injury report a little bit here, Brad. And we know Hutch and Barnes are out. We know Davenport's out. Melifonwu, return unknown. Well, he is back now. He's now in camp. He's practicing. I don't know if he'll be playing. I doubt it. Now, Broderick Martin, he's practicing in full now. That's a possibility. Got to talk about what number he's going to wear, though. Darius Smith and Broderick Martin got to have a discussion about that.
This isn't college football.
No. And, Rodrigo's still out. They do get Jamison Williams back. Hopefully Brian Branch can play next week in full and not get kicked out of the game for playing rugged football. We would hate to see that. Even Brady called that out on the air, and there was talk he's going to get in trouble for that because you can't criticize officials at all if you're an owner.
If you're an owner, yeah.
So all he said was, I don't think it warranted an ejection.
Well, there's going to be a lot of guys getting ejected. We better see a lot of people getting ejected moving forward if this is how it's going to be. Because it was a 15-yarder. Like that was he didn't need to do that. I get it.
Yeah. But
kicked out. What are we doing? So I don't know if the rules are changing, but they're better. He better not be the only one getting kicked out. We'll be watching.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Talking about that game last weekend, 24-14. Again, Lions have won 3 straight at Lambeau. They've beaten the Packers 6 out of the last 7 now. They haven't done that as a team since I believe it was between the 84 and 86 seasons. And I'll be honest with you, Brad, the Lions were not very good at that time. Billy Sims went down in 84, and I hate bringing that up, but that's 85. That was the Darryl Rogers 7-9 season, which that was a nice year. But then things fell apart in 86. I didn't think back, far enough. I was 12 years old, right? Didn't matter. I think they finished 4-12. So it's like, okay. But the rivalry was certainly there, but it wasn't as intense as it is now. And come the 90s when we used to go to the Dome and see Brett Favre battle the Lions with Barry and Herman, those were good days. Let's talk about that a little bit, man. We used to take that truck from Kalamazoo out to the Dome, have some fun in the parking lot and go inside, man. And it used to be so much fun seeing the Packers and the Lions go, battling with the Packer fans, man. But talk about that Lambeau experience, though, a little bit, being the opposition. How's that?
Well, it's probably felt a lot like we felt back in the early 90s. Because if I'm a Green Bay fan, I'm sitting down and I've got Honolulu Blue to my right and my left. I had folks from St. Joe, right near Benton Harbor, sitting next to me. To my left, I had folks from the UP to my right. I had some folks from Monroe, 2 rows down from me, and we were just having a blast. Like it was, and the Green Bay fans had nothing to cheer. Like the loudest cheer they had was when Branch got kicked out. That's all they had. By the time they scored that touchdown, they even shot out fireworks at 24-14 because they didn't shoot anything. These poor souls who had to carry these big flags in the end zone. After that, they couldn't even lift it up. It was just waterlogged. So, we moved here in 2015, so I've seen a lot of Lions been doing pretty good since we moved here to Wisconsin. By the way, Dave Jasinski.
No.
I take no credit.
Okay, I said
but
you
I do remember living here when we beat Green Bay for the first time in 20 some odd years because we lived here and we won the last 3 years, so it's not been terrible. But the fans. It's fun. It's a fun environment. I would tell you that it's the best environment I've ever been at a Lions road game is in New Orleans. You want to talk about a party? Oh my man, like those people. That was Matt Stafford's first game ever. I don't think we scored, and they scored about 40. So it was fun as a Saints. But I was like, these people are having a good time. And Lambeau's like, these people are having a good time. Like it's not, they are, so many people are like, where are you from? What you doing? Oh, I've been to the UP. We snowmobile here. Like it's just there's good camaraderie in that aspect. So
that's good.
But but then the game got underway, and these guys are like, "This is sorry." It is sorry for them, but it does not break my heart.
No, not at all. Now, hey, look, let's face it. Green Bay's a good team.
Yeah, I'm just talking about Sunday night.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hey, they're 6-3. They're 6-3.
Exactly. I mean, they played. They didn't play poorly. I mean,
see, that's what everybody says around here.
Mm-hmm.
They did. Right?
Oh
yeah, it's they're blaming themselves more than they're blaming us. Like,
of course, yeah,
yeah, all the penalties, yeah.
Now that's true.
The quarterback, that's because we were putting the pressure on you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It had a little something to do with who you were lined up against.
Absolutely. I know they had 7 penalties for 56 yards at one point to nothing for the Lions, and I guess they had to make that up with the branch issue. But they were able to move the ball. I mean, Jacobs was able to break a couple runs. Love made some plays, but Love made mistakes too. He definitely looked gimpy out there, but I mean, he certainly was capable of throwing the football. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, Jared Goff was in the same conditions. I mean, and he nicked his ankle up a couple weeks ago. So no excuses. But yeah, the Lions played well. They forced turnovers. The Kirby Joseph pick six, that really changed things around. I mean, because when you look at that first drive, it looked like Green Bay was going to just march right down the field and get a touchdown. It's like, oh man. And then the Lions stiffened up, bend but don't break, and make it happen. They hold them to 3. They get another drive after that, and they get down close, and McManus misses. It's 10-3, and then they get the Kirby Joseph pick 6. Now you're going to the half at 17-3. Now you're feeling pretty good, and you're getting the ball back, I believe.
Ball back.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was just once the Lions took the lead at 10-3, you could just kind of feel it. It's like, okay, it's not like they're dominating, but they're in control now.
Oh man, that was it. What we watched Sunday was culture. It was a culture win. It's all the stuff Dan said when he showed up to Detroit. That's what we watched.
Yeah.
We took him to the deep end, right? We took him to the deep end. They couldn't hang. Their coach is, let's kick the field goal. Our guy's on 4th down, and I looking at my friends like, oh man, like I don't make the same calls Dan Campbell makes, and y'all are glad I'm not the coach, but he does. And these players believe it because the culture has been created over these 4 years to when it's 4th down, there's not one man on that team that wants to let Dan Campbell down. And they're going to get that first down. And they do. And guess what? They don't just get first downs. They get touchdowns on 4th down.
They're so adept and used to going for it on 4th down. They're the most composed group I've seen. Yes, maybe that I've ever, because they do it so often. I mean, they're going for it on 4th down is not really a big deal for them anymore. They're very confident in themselves, and they convert quite a few, certainly more than 50%. I don't know what the percentage is in front of me, but I know it's over 50%. Did it bite them in the ass in the NFC Championship? Well, kind of, yeah. I mean, but there was a drop pass involved in that too. Yeah. I mean, it's, you got to execute. It wasn't a bad decision. Just
2 years ago, DJ Chark caught that ball on 4th down to close out Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers.
Yes.
Didn't happen against the Niners. Exactly. But guess what, guys? Like, these are our men. Like, this is our team. Don't whine about it.
Nope.
And on to the next.
Here's the thing. I mean, so they're 7-1, and in essence are 2 games ahead of everybody because they've already beaten the Packers and the Vikings. So they have the tiebreaker on both those teams now. They're 6-1 in the conference. That is so huge, folks. I can't stress it enough. I know we talk about, well, this is a must win. Coach and I last week said, well, this isn't, and it wasn't a must win for Detroit. I really felt it kind of was for Green Bay in the sense that, hey, this is our home turf. This is the team we're going to be battling for the division. And we are right now. We got to kind of hold serve at home, and they weren't able to. Now, last year that happened as well. Don't want to talk about last Thanksgiving, but hey, but honestly, that game was a turning point in the season because the Lions played very poorly in that game.
Yep.
You know, not trying to take credit from Green Bay. They played very well, but the Lions
they played well in the first half.
Yes. Yeah.
They got out the gate, but that was not a full game they played either. That was just a miserable.
And you know, and then that Bears game on the road was not good. And it was like, wow, what's going on? And then things clicked. But you're right. The respect this team has for each other and their coaches, and Dan Campbell especially. I don't know if I've seen this in any sport in Detroit, other than
Bad
maybe
Bad Boys
with Chuck Daly, and and then the Red Wings with Scotty Bowman.
Yep.
I mean, that's
what we're watching.
But you're also talking about the greatest coach perhaps in professional history, in Scotty Bowman.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then, I mean, Chuck Daly's one of the greatest coaches in NBA history. He's a Hall of Famer. You got Dan Campbell, who's in his 4th year as head coach with the Lions now, but this is his first head coaching gig. And it was a much maligned, criticized hire at the time. Where are those critics at now, Brad? I'm waiting. I'll wait. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So,
hey, Chris Spielman. Thank you.
That guy doesn't get enough credit.
He's got all the credit for me.
Yes.
I won't forget. Chris, I will not forget. I will not forget what you gave up to do what you're doing right now. Even though we don't see you, even though for our viewers and our listeners, go to YouTube this summer. There's an hour interview with him. That Rick Spielman, his podcast, put him on. We all need to spend that hour plus and listen to that, because that's the story. The story lives on YouTube. Don't turn us off yet. Dave and I still got some things to talk about, but when we're done, just search for that. You're going to love it. Thank you, Chris.
Exactly. Hey, you bring that up. When I was a youngster, this was, I want to say this was 89. Yeah, it was 89. And Rick Spielman was in Lions camp as a tight end, and he got hurt in that practice, and that ended up ending his career. He got a kidney injury in that practice. I remember when it happened. It didn't look as bad as it ended up being. I mean, you could see he was in pain, but he walked off. I mean, he wasn't a situation where like, oh my gosh, what happened? Just so he caught a helmet or a knee in the back, and it ended up pretty much ended his career. I didn't know who would
playing career.
His playing career. He's became a very good general manager, and and he's I don't know what is Rick doing right now.
No, he ran the Vikings for a long time, but he's out now. He's out, but he's got that podcast going, and I can't remember who it's with, but with a different media, it's great. I like whatever. Look it up. I don't have it off the top of my head, but.
It's not on the ESPN network where we're at, on the Roku channel, 7 p.m. on Saturdays. You can check us out, folks. And it's on the banner below there. If you didn't hear me or don't remember what I said, just check it out. Yeah, it's a great network. We're happy to be a part of it now too. Hey, Brad, before we jump into the Houston game, just want to talk a little more nostalgia here, because I just whenever you beat the Packers, I know it was always a big deal for me as a kid, but I mean, you being from the UP, we don't call you Uper Brad for nothing. There is a reason. You're from the UP, you're from Rapid River, but there's a lot of Packer fans up there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I always felt, growing up there near Escanaba, we were kind of that dividing line. When you went east, it got more blue and silver. When you went west, it got more green and gold. But it felt like Escanaba Marquette was just central UP, and that was just boom. And, then number 4 showed up in our lifetime, and number 12 showed up, so it got green and gold. But, there is no bigger rivalry for Upers in any sport than these two games every year. I mean, and it's been tough, to take all those L's, but there's a hearty group of Lions fans up there, and you'd be hard pressed to find people that are enjoying this more than them, because you had to put up with a lot of junk for years. And you didn't really have much to say. Aside from, this is my team. What am I going to do? Quit? Shame on the people who may have. And you can go, like, you can get West, you can get to Houghton, you can get to Hancock, you can get to Ironwood and find Lions fans. They're in the minority when you get that far west, but they're there, and I appreciate them. And so it's a big deal, man. It's a big deal for Youpers, these 2 games, and the game in Lambeau, frequently known as the Youper Bowl.
Yes, sir. How did you? I know you told me, but remind me, how did you become a Lions fan? Because I mean, obviously, it was a family.
It's my dad. Yeah, it's my dad. I mean, it's why is my son a Lions fan? It's because of his dad. And, my dad grew up in a small town called Pickford, which is outside of Sault Ste. Marie, on the East End. So, when you're folks on the East End, these are Lions fans for the most part. The Green Bay folks would be the minority over there. So, that's where my heritage came from. So I would tell you that's that. I can't thank him enough. Right. 1983, driving us down to the Pontiac Silverdome on Thanksgiving Day.
Great.
That same year, taking us to Tiger Stadium to watch the Tigers, and that was an influential part of my life. So, I can't thank him enough. It was, he's done a lot of great things for me. This isn't the greatest thing he's ever done for me, but it sure is fun.
Pretty good. It's pretty good. Yeah, I can relate. I mean, I grew up near Detroit. I mean, I was never more than 45 minutes outside of Detroit. So, and my dad's a huge, Detroit fan. But it's funny, like, with the Lions and the Pistons and the Tigers, it was actually easy for me. But for the Red Wings, it actually was a little bit of a struggle because we didn't have cable when I was a kid. But we had on TV, which was actually pretty cool. It's like having HBO, Pass, and Cinemax all at the same time, and it was equivalent of $80 a month.
Oh, that's
like
spending.
It was $20 a month, but I did an inflation calculation. I'm like, oh boy. So yeah, we didn't have it that long. That's a lot of money.
Right.
But I didn't get to see a lot of Red Wing games. I saw more Toronto games because I was guaranteed every night I saw hockey in Canada. I didn't get to see the Red Wings as often.
Wow.
But my dad's such a fan, and that's all I heard about Gordie Howe and the Olympia, and that's how I became a Wings fan. But Lions, it was always there.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
It just got me thinking about one of the benefits of not living in Detroit in the 70s, 80s, 90s was the blackout restrictions. I watched every game. I was never blacked out. No. I got all those home games. And so I think there's a lot of that, outside of Detroit, that we didn't have to battle that things you guys got stuck with. So, I recall there was a portion of our lives on the cable system in the UP. We used to have 2 CBS channels, one coming out of Traverse City, one coming out of Green Bay or whatever. So we could get both games.
Cool.
It's not that way now. Now it's a little messy. Like, they still put Green Bay games on the Marquette Fox thing, and they got to switch that up, man. That's junk, So Lions fans do got to get a little, they got to get a little tricky when the teams are playing at the same time. But
but you're right, it was tough. And ironically, that 83 Thanksgiving game was one of the few I got to see on TV. And I remember it well, 45-3 on NBC. It was beautiful against Pittsburgh. I remember the Mr. T poster in the upper deck said, "I pity Pitt." It was great. But you think about it, that's how starved we were for anything as a Lions fan. I mean, that was a great year. The Lions end up winning the Central. They damn near beat the Niners in the playoffs. I mean, just that was what we had. And then that year, ironically, the Michigan Panthers in their first year win the USFL championship, led by Anthony Carter and Bobby
Hebert.
I mean, things were good. Life was good then. But yeah, it was tough to fill the dome back then. I mean, you had to have 75,000 seats sold by Tuesday 4 p.m. Thursday 4 p.m. before the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the economy.
It was just unfair. Like that was a misstep.
The economy was not great in Detroit. People weren't traveling as much as they do now, weren't able to do that as much as they do now.
Well, you had options. You got the Big House. You got East Lansing. You got two major football, like that was a mistake. Whenever they decided to move out of Tiger Stadium and said, let's build an 80,000 seat behemoth, that was just a mistake.
That bad boy could get loud.
Oh, baby. Yeah, it wasn't the Silverdome wasn't a mistake, just the size, that many seats.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was too much. And, often, I remember often like either like an Art Van Furniture or maybe Farmer Jack would step in and buy the last 3,000 seats that were left and give them away to kids, charity or whatever, and that, which was really cool. And lift the blackout. I could once in a while get Toledo Channel 3. It was very snowy and fuzzy because 2 and 3 never came in well for us either. It was, I have a digital antenna now because I was talking to you off air about getting some apps, and I was like, oh, please God, let me be able to watch the lines. It's crystal clear now. But back then, man, you were getting their foil out and saying, oh, how about now? But I could get Cleveland Browns games. I remember I saw the Lions Cleveland Thanksgiving game in Barry's rookie year in '89. I was trying to see it through the fuzz, and I could see a little bit of it. But yeah, even that game was blacked out. So, okay, enough nostalgia, but that was awesome. I love talking about nostalgia. Yeah. Let's talk about the future. Let's talk about Sunday Night Football, the Lions and the Houston Texans. Let's talk about the offense of the Lions against this Houston defense. And Brad, I know Will Anderson is hurt. He's gimpy. We'll talk about their offense after in a while, but their defense, it's a pretty stout group, and Will Anderson is definitely a leader of that group, but he's kind of nicked up right now. But how do you think the Lions will attack this Houston defense?
Yeah, he didn't practice today with an ankle, so that's I mean, let's beat him with their best players for sure. We do, just because this thing's coming on Sunday night, don't get tricky. And I don't question Ben Johnson. Let's put it that way. But run the ball. Do what we do. Let our offensive line control the line of scrimmage. Get the run game going, which gets our play action going. It'll be interesting to get J-Mo back this week to stretch it a bit. We just couldn't stretch it.
No.
Realistically, I mean, we weren't going to do it in that pouring rain anyway, but
exactly.
Now we have our guys back. So, I don't think we have to. I don't want to see that Tampa game ever again. And I don't think we ever will with 55 throws. Like, come on. We learned from our mistake there. So I just feel as though, with Houston, that's going to be a loud environment. They're fired up. They're undefeated at home.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They're 4-0. They got some power on offense. I know we're talking about how do we attack their defense. I think we attack their defense by controlling the line of scrimmage and ball control and keeping that ball away from CJ Stroud.
And I believe this might arguably be at least certainly this season, be the biggest test of the year, because if Anderson plays, you've got Anderson, and then you've got an old friend from Minnesota who's now down there, Danielle Hunter. He's got 5.5 sacks this year. Anderson has 7.5 sacks this year. They have the opposite problem in Houston that Detroit has right now at defensive end. Both their guys, that's a lie because Anderson's nicked up, but they're both going to be able to play together, possibly this week, but certainly soon. They are tearing it up. So I think it's going to be it's certainly going to be a test for our tackles, but I'm sure they're up for the task, Decker and Sewell. But I think that inside run game is going to be in play early on. But I think it's going to be important for them to it's always important to keep Goff upright. But do you think he's going to have to maybe step up in the pocket a little more, because he's going to be facing at least a fierce rush from one side, possibly both sides in this game? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's his timing is just incredible right now. I mean, he is moving in the pocket well. So, I mean, moving up when those ends are coming around makes all the sense in the world. This could be a big Sam Laporta game, getting that ball out to him when that pressure's coming. And then Sam, we'll need him and Wright chipping on those ends too. So I think the tight ends are going to play a big role in our success for sure.
Yeah, and so you brought up the Houston record. They are 4-0 at home. Now they're 6-3 on the season. Now they've lost. They did beat the Colts on the road in week 1. They lost at Minnesota 34-7, and they also lost at Green Bay 24-22. Excuse me. So it was a close game, but they still lost. And then the Jets beat them last week.
Yeah,
21-13.
They're struggling. I mean, I think Stroud isn't as unconscious as he was a year ago, the way he was just rolling through his rookie year. But I think the struggles are more on that offensive side of the ball. I do think their interior O-line is not playing well. And, and that's our, I'm not saying that, we're giving up 3 points a game, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. The struggle isn't immense, but where are we? Where can we get better at? It's on defense. Yeah. Getting to the quarterback, keeping that quarterback in the pocket and breaking up passes, right? So, their weakness is that offense. It is not defense. So,
yeah, they are very
Aaron
big.
Glenn, baby, let's go. He's going back home.
You got it. And before I jump into that more, we might see Jeff Okudah out there trying to do some damage for the Houston Ball Club.
Yeah, kind of strange. He's on the injury report today.
Yes, he might not play.
That's weird.
Yeah, well, I mean, nothing against him, but
he just had some bad fortune, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, the injuries, he just never was able to get on track, at least in Detroit. So we don't want him to be on track Sunday, but we wish him the best after that. But let's in keeping with the offense for Houston, Nico Collins has not practiced now twice this week. They have not activated him officially off the IR yet. Now that doesn't mean they won't, but this is Thursday night here on the 7th. We're recording this, so we'll find out on Friday the 8th. Whether they're going to do that or not, more than likely. That's still, even if he's activated, he may not play. He might be a game time decision. But Stephon Diggs is out for the year now. But, this team is deep. They got Tank Dell there, who is definitely, certainly a solid number 2 guy with some speed there. Dalton Schultz, another guy, their tight end. He's kind of banged up a little bit, but I think he's going to be a go. And then Joe Mixon's banged up even, but Joe Mixon, Brad, they got him from Cincinnati in free agency this year, and he's got over 600 yards rushing. He's been damn good. Talk about him.
Yeah. No, I mean, great pickup. When they made that pick, I kind of looked at Houston as like, all right, Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Like,
you got it.
If Stroud is what he was, these guys were. I didn't have this as a win at the beginning of the year for the Detroit Lions. Like, I was like, we're not going. I mean, I didn't see us at 7-1 either. So, but and I'm not saying Detroit was going to you're going
to lose some. You're going to lose games. So which games are you going to lose?
Right. Lose one in the other in the AFC. Go on. But Joe Mixon was the reason my mind went there, because that running game matched with Collins, the receivers, and Stroud. That's formidable. But their O-line is not. Their tackles are good. That interior, that McNeil, Reeder can do some damage. And I don't know if they don't have the feet to handle some of these blitzes that we might be able to pull off with Anzalone.
Yeah, that's a great point. And then if you can get Broderick Martin back in the mix, you can maybe slide Onwuzurike back inside a little bit if Zadarius Smith's able to take some reps. I can't imagine Smith's going to see more than 15 to 20 reps in this game. Yeah. And it will certainly be situational, pass rushing reps, because he certainly doesn't know all the schemes up front yet, the stunts or whatever. So it's going to take a little time there. I don't know if he's that familiar with Aaron Glenn's defense or not. I'm not sure. But he's a veteran. I know he'll pick up on a lot of it very quickly because it's like you're speaking the same language, just different diction or whatever.
I would think a DN position is possible, right? Like to get in some games on short notice for practicing,
Sure, absolutely. And but yeah, getting Anzalone up front blitzing. Now if he's been practicing, I don't know. I don't think he's going to be activated though. It'd be nice if he was, because man, he flourished in that role last year.
When he gets home, he gets home.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Another under the radar draft pick by Brad Holmes. I think Melifonwu was a 4th or 5th round pick, a corner out of Syracuse, cornerback. And he didn't play well at corner. And then when they converted him to safety, it's like, well, okay, hopefully he can be a special teams guy. Well, he is, but he started the second half of last year.
He was huge for us at the end of the season last year.
Yeah, Tracy Walker went to the bench.
Walker couldn't find the field. Is he on any roster?
I don't know at the moment. I'll be honest with you. I haven't.
San Francisco, maybe he was out there.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's on the roster.
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. Great guy. I mean, he played well in Detroit and he got hurt, but he definitely was effective. That was a 3rd round pick, I believe. That's Bob Quinn. That was a Bob Quinn pick right there. Bob Quinn was hit and miss. Bob Quinn made some really nice picks, but then he made some really, really poor decisions.
Like I think you said earlier, the 2nd round was like throwaway. Like, what are you doing? Thank you for Frank. Thank you for Decker. Thank you for Glasgow.
Yeah, and you bring that up. Here's the difference between Brad Holmes and Bob Quinn. Bob Quinn had an extra 5th round pick his first season in Detroit, and he took a long snapper who didn't even see the field after week 1 of the preseason. He was gone. He was cut. That's a throwaway waste of a pick. On a position you really don't need to draft. I'll be honest. You can no offense, but that's a position you can. It's like a special team kicker or punter. You're going to find that on the undrafted market. That's where you're going to get those guys. You can draft a kicker once in a while. If someone's special, a punter once in a great while, but and where Brad Holmes will draft a Malcolm Rodriguez.
Right.
Pretty valuable guy. Yeah.
Thank you, Chris Spielman.
Bob Quinn's going to draft Tease Tabor in the second round. Oh. Brad Holmes is going to take Brian Branch. Yeah. Now I know I'm cherry picking the picks here.
It's easy to cherry pick. There's a long list that you could rattle off if you wanted.
Hey, Bob Quinn did it. We thought they were taking Harold Landry, and instead they took Frank Ragnow. That ended up being a fantastic. Not Landry's a good player. He's very.
You can't take them both. You can't take them both.
No, but Frank Ragnow out of Arkansas, and that Frank the Tank, they got a good one there. I mean, possibly.
And he's a guy that his name could be at Ford Field. His name could be at Ford Field. On the wall. Pride of the Lions. Before
we get into our forecast of the game, let's talk about the center position. We've had some good centers in Detroit. We had Steve Mott for the longest when we were kids. We had Kevin Glover. I mean, he's a Pro Bowler, I think, a couple of times. And I used to hate when people would say, well, Barry would have been amazing, even more amazing if he had a line. It's like he had Lomas Brown and Kevin Glover his whole career, basically. And, I mean, they had a lot of injuries. I mean, I would say so. Eric Andolsek gets tragically killed in the offseason in 92. And then Mike Utley gets tragically injured in that Rams game in 91, and they lose both their guards.
Remember they brought comeback from.
Exactly. I mean, they brought Big Dave Richards in and Bill Fralick. Remember Big Bill?
Oh man, there were 3 guys they brought in.
Harvey Salem was the other one.
Yeah.
And those guys played well, man. I mean, they weren't the Dallas Cowboys offensive line, no, but they weren't this Detroit Lions offensive line either. I mean, we're seeing greatness right now. We've got a possible Hall of Famer in Frank Ragnow. Pride of certainly in the Ring of Honor, Pride. They get that name up there. I would think so. Penei Sewell is well on his way. That guy is special. And Taylor Decker, he's maligned by a few, whatever. But, and he's had his moments where he's struggled. But overall, Taylor Decker's been a damn good football player.
Yeah, he's a left tackle that plays every snap.
Yeah, and he's
he's been a couple games here recently where, Jared, his guy got to Jared, and nobody wants that. But I'll take Taylor Decker. I'm not ready to give up.
No, all day long. I mean, it's funny. I remember thinking that we would have already made the switch, shooting him over to right tackle and move Panay over to left, but haven't needed to do it.
No,
haven't needed to do it. And I mean, let's face it. I'm not going to question Dan Campbell or Hank Fraley in the personnel department in terms of who's going to start and who's going to, what position are going to play. And then it can't be said enough how great Graham Glasgow has been. The man has played both guard and center positions this year already because of various injuries. Now, thankfully, he hasn't had to do that all season like he did last year, because he wasn't even supposed to start last year. He ended up starting at right guard for nearly the whole season. Played every interior spot then, too. So this line's been nicked up. I mean, Zeitler missed a game. Ragnow missed a game. I don't want to trade draft capital. I mean, it's kind of, maybe I'm just neurotic, but I kind of cringed when I heard 5th and 6th round pick. I was happy they got the 7th round in return, because I was like, okay. And then I saw the list of how many picks they have, and I'm like, okay, they're in good shape. And to your point earlier, Brad's going to get those picks back. Yep. He's going to make moves. So he's just that kind of guy.
Okay. Yep.
How do you see? Let's talk about how you see this one shaking out, Brad. Let me get to the proper. There we go. Dave on the fly here, recording live. What are you gonna do? I don't make too many mistakes like that, so I got to give myself.
Nobody even would have noticed if you wouldn't have brought it up.
Okay, I'm glad. I don't want to look sloppy, man. We got at least sound professional and look professional. Okay, that's what we're trying to do here. But how do you see this one shaking out, brother?
Man, it's gonna be tough. I mean, I going on the road on a Sunday night in a hostile environment to a team that hasn't lost at home, that we are the measuring stick.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get their best. Now, what has Detroit done to get the 7-1? They're literally ripping the soul out of our opponents.
Yep.
By the time these games are over, these people don't even know what weighs up. And I wouldn't be surprised if they don't beat Houston, but I can't bet against them. I cannot, maybe this is the fan in me going 7-1, and until they lose, I'm not going to pick them to lose, right? But I'm probably not going to pick them to lose. But I am not seeing a Titans, a Dallas, a Green Bay type of game. I'm seeing like a Minnesota game.
Yeah.
So buckle up, fans. You're in for it on Sunday night, because their offense is going to go. Stroud struggled for sure here recently, but this is the measuring stick. They got the big boys coming. So, 34-31, Jake Bates kicking indoors, could get down to something like that. I'm not looking forward to it, to be honest with you. I don't need that in my life. I'm too old. My heart hurts sometimes.
We're only 50, man. Come on.
But look at this is 50 going on 70.
I'm glad you said that, because you mentioned it earlier, how they've stressed this out for so long. I have been very calm. And I'm going to tell you why. Part of the reason why is I just really, even at the end of last year, and I know when we recorded I know we have it. I'm like, I just feel like this team's special. And I'm going to say it. I feel like I did in 84, in 2002, the Tigers in 84, Red Wings in 2002, the Bad Boys in 89. Those were years you just knew. You knew that they just, it was nothing was a given. Nothing's obviously, but it just, in my fandom, those three teams, those three championships were like, it was kind of just enjoy the ride. And that's how I feel right now with the Lions. I mean, a lot of things can happen, but I'm with you in that I can't rationally pick against them because I feel like every game they've played and every game they're going to play, they could win. Not saying it's a given, not being that kind of guy, like you said, it's not fandom, but I'm saying 27-24 Lions, and Jake Bates, be ready. It's going to be that kind of a game. I'll be honest with you, I might not have said this if both Collins and Diggs were in this game. That is significant. Tank Dell's still there. They've got other guys. I mean, it's not like they're devoid of talent. And Schultz, of course. And Robert Woods. There's a guy too. I mean, and John and Mechie. Gosh, people forget about him. He came in. He had the I forget which form of cancer he had to battle there, and he beat it. Thank you God. Thank you, Jesus. He beat it. So at the end of the day, that's a guy you got to be worried about too. He's very reminiscent of Jameson Williams. Very speedy Alabama guy, right? So that concerns me. I think Stroud concerns me. I think he's going to be able to move a heck of a lot better than Jordan. He reminds me of Jordan Love, very similar stature, very similar type of quarterback. They're not running quarterbacks, but they are mobile and they will get out of the pocket, and they can throw well on the run. They throw very well on the run. So it's going to be a chess match. It really is. I could see it going your way too into the 30s as well. It could be that kind of game. And if it is, I favor Detroit. I think if it would get to a little tighter, kind of like you said, that Minnesota game type score, that plays more into Houston's hands, because if they get the ball late in the game with the crowd, that's a factor. Again, I just can't pick against the Lions, like not for fandom, just there's no rational reason to. It's not like, oh, now is this, not to be pessimistic, but is this a game they could lose? Yeah, it is. It's a non-conference road game, and they have, like I said earlier, in essence, a 2-game lead in the division. But Brad, you're fighting for home field in the playoffs. Washington's right there, aren't they?
Right. Yeah. They have they're performing, and it's an impressive young group there too. Replicating what those guys did when they were here with Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. Got a lot of Lions executives over there right now, don't we?
Yeah, it's a good point. That is a good point. And new ownership, doesn't hurt to draft Jaden Daniels either. That was smart. But I'll tell you what, that was a challenging decision, because you knew Caleb Williams was going to be off the board, but you had Drake May there, and Drake May for the longest was being mocked to Washington, and still at the even on draft day, there were people that thought it might be Drake May. We thought Jaden Daniels, because that skill set there, and May's a good quarterback. May might end up being a really good quarterback, but Jaden Daniels, we just kind of thought there's something there with Jaden Daniels. He's kind of like Love and Stroud, but actually faster, and he can throw on the run. He's a great improvisational quarterback. Right. Mm-hmm. So got to keep winning. And this is a game, and you're facing a team. If Will Anderson's out, and
that changes things.
That changes things there too. So it's going to be exciting. Got anything else before we wrap this one up, brother?
Oh man, I just appreciate getting back on here and talking some Lions football with you, and miss Coach and Justin, and maybe 4 of us will get together again sometime. That would be a joy.
We got to get the band back together. We'll get them back soon. Coach is getting ready. Marine City's in the second round in the playoffs, so he's getting ready. He's got a challenging one this week. So good luck to the Marine City Mariners. And then hopefully we talk about another Lions win next week. Hey, folks, don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. Check out our Facebook page. We got a Twitter X account. Check us out on ESEN Network and the Roku channel at 7 p.m. on Saturday. For the Uper Brad Harrison, my name is Drew. Take care, everybody, and thank you for watching. This has been the Sports Peninsula Podcast. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Follow us on YouTube so you don't miss an episode at the Sports Peninsula Podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter X. Just look for @SportsP Podcast, and follow us to keep up on sports around the great state of Michigan and beyond. You can also catch our show every Saturday night at 7 p.m. on the ESEN Network channel as part of Roku. When you want to hear all about sports in the great state of Michigan, there is only one Sports Peninsula Podcast.